Brothers, it's a blessing to be on this side of the Lord. Uh, unlike Steve, I wasn't the good guy. I wasn't a bad guy, but I wasn't the no drugs, no alcohol, no none of that. As a young age, I did fall into peer pressure. I did fall into temptation, but I thank God. God had me covered that I didn't slip and stay. Amen. Uh, in college, I was never the drinker, but I would have a cup to make sure everybody else was drunk. I was the provider. I never was the drug addict, but I would hold a joint to my mouth and make it look like I was smoking so it can be cool while everybody else was smoking. They'll say, Tim, you not high? I'm not high. They say, you must have been smoking that other stuff, something that was weak stuff. I say, boy, I was smoking the same thing you was smoking. But God would not let me like that taste. I would get a severe headache. I couldn't drink and get drunk because that's just not of me. And I didn't know at that time what God was doing. But needless to say, I went to college. Went to college for accounting. My plan was to graduate college and go and getting to law school. I wanted to be a lawyer. My sister and my brother was a lawyer, and we all had that entrepreneurial skill because my dad started from nothing in 1975 and opened his own funeral home, and his business grew to 5 services. Little country boy from Tennant-Louisiana, started with nothing, didn't know who his father was at that time. Had a little speech impediment. Everybody laughed at him. I remember the teacher said, George, you're going to have to learn how to talk. And my dad told his teacher, his principal, he tells me this story to this day. He said, my dad tell him, Will, don't worry about how I talk. He said, how you going to talk to me like that? Don't tell me I worry about how I talk. He said, because the profession I'm going to do, I ain't got to know how to talk because they ain't going to talk back to me. I'm going to be an undertaker. So my father, I saw him literally start from nothing. I watched my dad as a kid and didn't know start from a shack funeral home to building a bigger funeral home, going from that funeral home to another. I remember the family house that I renovated now to this day. I remember that when the kitchen was right in the living room, when the front room was the door, and I remember my dad adding on, and I saw him labor and work. And in ministry, I still didn't want to do that because here I was. I had a dad that was a politician. He was a deacon, a well-known man, a community businessman. And my aspiration at that time was to be a party promoter. I'm throwing all the parties. And he was a deputy sheriff. And when the police come out there, I'm the one that threw the party. They got to break up. That's what I was doing. And something happened when I graduated. I being a young man in the community, a young black man, they started having me to do a lot of public speaking to the kids. So I would be speaking to the kids and, just going through the motions. And then I started reading my Bible as I speak to the kids. Then, as I said last night, I found out Timothy in the Bible, started reading the book of Timothy, and just kept on reading the Bible. And a young man that's just got out of jail for drugs, I remember him saying to me, and he didn't call me, but I remember him saying to me, they had a well-known preacher the day I spoke at this church, and I was just going there out of formalities, and this preacher was all the way from Shreveport, Louisiana, and he was from the largest church. He had positions all over the state with the conventions, and here I am, a young man that just barely go to church. And that young man, after I got through speaking, and while the preacher was preaching, he leaned over there to me, and he said, why you not preaching? I say, because I'm not a preacher. He said, you should have been preaching. I say, no, I shouldn't. He said, if you was preaching, I would at least listen to you. I understood what you're saying. I don't know what he's talking about. This young man called me and said he saw something in me. Needless to say, this young man became a drug dealer in and out of jail. But when he got out of jail, the first person he came to, he came and saw me, came and talked to me, prayed with me, and I prayed with him, I'm sorry. And needless to say, at the time went on, the pastor that same day came up and said, God's got his hand on you. I blew all that off. I didn't even wait till the benediction. They was talking all this stuff about God got me. I got out of there. I ran. Kept on going, and my father ended up getting sick. still wasn't thinking about preaching, and I kept on going. And finally, I surrendered to the call because God has just started blessing me and started doing so many things in my life. And I knew God had his hand on me. I surrendered to the call, walked away. And the funny thing about it is the Sunday I surrendered to the call of God, I had an appointment the next day to sign the papers on a nightclub that I was going to open up. And I just walked away from all of that worldliness. And say this to say this. I gave my life to Christ. And when I gave my life to Christ, it got hard, y'all. When I was out there having the worldly adventures, throwing those parties and doing this and that, the life around, I had all the friends in the world. All the ladies liked me. All the guys liked me. I was a bigger guy, but I was the most popular guy. I was the man in the crowd, man. If you want anything you need to know, you go to see Tim Tennant. Tim is the man. Tim, I mean, to celebrities, to the local people, I can get them in. I'm doing all this and that. And I left all that and started living for the Lord. And when I left all that, started living for the Lord, man, y'all, it got hard. The numbers dried up, the friends dried up, the money dried up for a little while. But then I got called to be a pastor. And when I became and got called to be a pastor, it was hard. Started out with 5 members. Didn't know that God had placed me in, we call now a church planter. That was over 20 years ago. 5 members, literally 5 members. And then after 5 members, I started picking up some kids, and it was real rough because they were inner city kids and they were rough kids. I'll be preaching, and with those 5 people and about these 10 kids, I'll be in there. And John 3:16, for God so little, boy, if you don't sit down and shut up. And I had to go back over here, girl, leave him alone. And then I'm steady preaching, but in preaching, I got to stop my sermon and fussing. Because these inner city kids. And I'm like, whoa. Well, but I loved on them kids. And as I loved on them kids, guess what happened? Their mama start coming. Their daddy start coming. Sheep begot sheep. These kids. And when the mama started coming, I remember I had those older 5 members start talking about how the people would come in and what they had on and what they did and how they were looking. I was like, leave them alone. Leave them alone. I say, you can't clean the fish before you catch it. I said, we got to catch the fish. And once we catch the fish, we can clean it up. Needless to say, a lot of those members 20 years ago, they're members now, and they're clean. They're leading, they're working, they're servants. But I said I would say this. That church at that time, it started flourishing. It went from 5 to 200 members. And then you start having church problems. But before I had church problems, I'm tell you this, it was like I had a Job moment in my life, and I'm finna get out the way because he's ready to preach. When I had a Job moment in my life, when I say I had a Job moment in my life, I had a Job moment in my life. It started out, man, the church started booming, busting out the scene. But then after this, I was 300 pounds, and I told Steve I started losing weight, 398 to be exact. My health. Doctor came to me, he said, I had an eye exam and they found a mass on my brain. I went to the neurologist, and neurologists say, it's not cancerous, but it's something you're going to have the rest of your life. So the story is God gave me this, and I'm living with it. And I don't know who I'm talking to today, but my testimony is that when God called me, he said, I'm not just going to call you, but I'm going to give you something that you're going to live with the rest of your life. I'm living with it to this day. He said, you got something you're going to live with the rest of your life. He said, it's a disease that you can't shake. You're going to live with the rest of your life. And being immature and dumb, I say, I'm looking at my wife, I say, I ain't got no AIDS, do I? Because that's all I knew. Sexually transmitted disease. He said, no, you have multiple sclerosis. I say, that sounds like something you catch on your feet, doctor. What is multiple sclerosis? Didn't know what it was. Says a neurologist disease. He said, I can't say you have it. The spinal tap says you have it. Your scan says you have it. But the symptoms that you have don't show that you have it. I said, what you mean? He said, you shouldn't be able to see. You should have memory loss. You shouldn't be able to walk. He said, but I can't diagnose you with this now because you're doing too good. You're 300 pounds, but you walking 3 miles a day. You lifting weights. You're exercising. Your mind is sharp. Every test we did physically doesn't show that. Needless to say, I kept on going. Ministry was growing, ministry booming, and everything is going, it's flourishing. And out of nowhere, I'm preaching on a the Friday before Easter, Good Friday, and walked in there. But when I got out the pulpit, they had to catch me, help me out the pulpit, walk me to my car. They took me in the car, took me straight to the emergency room. At the emergency room, the doctor's going up and down my leg. I see tears in my wife's eyes. I'm like, what are you crying for? Feeling pain, really couldn't do nothing, but I was paralyzed on my whole right side. I had to learn how to walk all over again. I'm like, Lord, why? And this time I'm pastoring 2 churches. Why, when I'm at the apex of my ministry, why now that I'm doing good in ministry and politics, I'm running a successful business, why now you're going to hit me with this disease? Now I can't walk. Then instead of questioning God, I stopped and I said, Lord, nevertheless, not my will, your will. Your will be done. And I prayed and I fasted. And I said, God, if you let me get back on my feet, I promise you, I'm going to run like I never ran before. Needless to say, after 2 or 3 weeks, some people started coming in. About 2 or 3 months, I had to learn how to walk again. I had to learn how to put my sock on again. I had to learn how to drive again. But after that, I just say, man, I'm going to go harder for ministry. Start going harder for ministry. Needless to say, I got through that cycle. Then financial cycle, ain't worry about that. Everything he did, everything he threw at me, I never cursed God. I just kept on going. I never stopped. But then I lost my backbone. I lost my dad. I didn't curse God. I didn't question God. Lost my son. Didn't question God. The ministry that we were having, we had a building that we had, man, we're doing good. The ministry grew, even in the pandemic. And right after I can get through all these losses, now they call and tell us, okay, the building that y'all in, the building that's been sold, well, what we gonna do? You can lease it month to month. How are you gonna lease a church month to month? And then, not only that, we're gonna take your lease up. What about the repairs you need? That's on you. So we got to fix the air conditioner, fix the floor, fix the carpet, fix the roof, and you're gonna take my lease up? Church voted we didn't do it, and needless to say, that was a hiccup. Kept on going, and it was storm after storm after storm, and I never questioned God. But I was still living with this. I'm living with the hurt of the loss of my dad. I'm living with the financial strain. I'm living with my children now. They're going through bereavement of my family, my children. I'm living with me and my wife now. The ministry has tested us so bad that me and my wife at odds. I'm living with my business, going back and forth, switching from my dad to me, learning how to adjust. I'm living with my mom being sick. I'm living with my friends walking away with me. I'm living with family members that smoking drugs and everything that's going on. I'm living with financial problems. I'm living with my problems with my family, and everybody expecting me to bail everybody out. Why? Because you're the Christian. You're the Christian. You're the pastor. Everybody depending on Tim. What about Tim? I'm living with it. And it got to a point that I just couldn't take it no more, and I felt like, Lord, okay, enough is enough. When am I going to see some relief from this? Family, I want you to tell y'all this. The reason I said that, because there's some people in here today as men, it's a lot of stuff we live with. But as the man, we got to still stick our chest out, smile, like everything is peaches and creams. Why? Because if you're married, that woman, she's looking at you, she's expecting you to be her prophet, her priest, provider, and her protector. You got to live with it. The children are looking for you to be her prophet, their priest, and their protector. Our family is looking at the man of God to be the prophet, the priest, the protector, and the provider. And that hurts. So I don't know what you're living with. I know some of us in here, as Steve said, some might be drugs, some might be alcohol, some might be just wrestling with your inner peace, your mind. But I'm telling you, I got somebody that you can find, and I found him. It took me 4 years to find out that it wasn't nothing. It wasn't the business. It wasn't the money. It wasn't my children. It wasn't my wife. It wasn't my family. I believe in this. I believe in Jesus and a therapist. And my therapist showed me. She said, Pastor Tennant, you know what your problem is? I said, what? She said, you are grieving. You are grieving. And it took me 4 years to face my grief head on. And once I faced it head on, gave it to God officially, because we always say we're giving something to God, but a lot of times we give it to him and take it right back with us. But when we surrender, you got to really release it. put it in God's hand. And when you put it in God's hand, I turn it over to Jesus, a song I heard when I was little, and I stopped worrying about it. I turned it over to the Lord, and guess what he did? He worked it out. Then I had a motto, and my family motto, and we have it all over our house, me and my wife: seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and everything else you want, it'll be added unto you. We start seeking God. God sent Steve. He sent SBC. He sent members. He sent money. He sent resources. He sent families. He sent Nova Scotia, because I decided to seek him first. I was preaching, but at that time, because of all my hurt, I wasn't putting him first. I was working, but I hadn't submitted. Now I have fully submitted, and when you submit to God, something that happened, and we're sitting down right there, I got truly, truly, truly saved. I surrendered to God. And when I became submissive and surrendered to God, guess what happened? God gave me peace. That's all we're living this life for, to be saved in peace. What's so special about peace? God give you peace that surpasses all understanding. When he give you that peace, you can be sick and still happy. You can be broke and still happy. You can be lied on and still. You can have all kind of problems in the world, but God give you that peace. And people don't understand why you got that peace. That's because if you don't got Jesus, if you have not been saved and have not surrendered, confessed, repented, and given it to God, then you can't live with it. I can live with it now because now I am truly saved. And you know what my assignment is now? To go out and tell somebody else about Jesus. Tell somebody your life story. The good, the bad, and the ugly. Because the only Jesus some people know is the Jesus they see in you. God bless you. May God keep you. And my prayer for you, brothers and sisters, well, ain't no sisters in here. Brothers, is that I know I'm not the only one in here that's living with something. We're all living with something. But guess what? Have you taken what you're living with and given it to God? When I gave it to him, he worked it out for me. I promise he'll work it out for you. God bless you, brothers.